Hey everybody, welcome to the next to last week of MuseScore. This week we're going to be focusing on advanced skills such as laying out complicated parts, page formatting, messing with the settings to make things look cleaner, changing fonts, that kind of thing. And we're going to do this through the vehicle of a drum set part. Drum set parts are among the most complicated things we have to do when working inside notation software. In fact, Finale, which is the industry standard, actually makes this quite difficult. MuseScore is learned from the experience in using Finale and Sibelius and all that, and has created something much more modern and I think in general easier to use. It's still got its own clunkiness, as you'll see as we go through, but I think you'll find that it's not too bad in MuseScore. So we'll be creating a drum set part, and in the second part of this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make it look good. All right, let's switch into the software. And what we have is our usual setup. We've got our MuseScore software and we've got our score here. This is downloadable directly above this video. Make sure to have this handy. I highly recommend printing it. It's a 4-page document. This is what you're going to be creating. If you follow along right now, we're going to eliminate the first page for you today. So you'll already have 1/4 of the entire project done. And then I'll show you some copy and paste tricks that'll knock that down to about 1.5 pages of extra entry. So you'll save yourself a lot of time if you actually do this with me. Feel free to pause the video along the way to help yourself. All right, so drum set is easiest to find if you simply enter it into the search. You can find it under unpitched percussion, but it's buried in a pile of stuff. So whenever I'm adding a drum set, I just add it through here. I type in drum and it's almost always the first thing that comes up. Hit the arrow, so it's in our score, and next. Okay, drum set does not have a key signature, so we don't need to worry about that. For 4/4, we're gonna write it as common time with a C. We can't enter a tempo range like this has or the text initially. So we're going to go ahead and say show the tempo marking, and we'll enter the first part here, but I'm not going to worry about the second part yet. I'll show you how to do that. It's actually very easy. The next thing, if you go all the way to the bottom, and I know you can't see it because it's behind my face, but this is 221 measures long. So let's save ourselves some time and go ahead and enter 221 measures right from the beginning. Back to the top, in all caps, the title of this piece is Take the, in quotes, A Train. And the composer is by Billy Strayhorn. To mimic this as close as possible, I'm honoring the capitals I'm seeing on the score. That's going to make it a little simpler. There's no subtitle. There's no lyricist. We could technically get away with doing arranged by Alan Baylock and the lyricist thing, but I like to do that differently. It feels a little more authentic. And because we're not publishing this or worrying about it, I'm not going to have you enter the gigantic copyright mess that you can see right here. That's just too much. Don't worry about it. You could put it in there if you so chose. All right, so now we have our Take the A Train window. And of course, this is in more of a handwritten style. So we can mimic that, and I've showed you this before, but for those who don't remember, it's up here under Format, Style, and then right at the very beginning, Score, we can pick Muse Jazz. Musical text font defaults to that automatically. Now this does a lot of good, but it's not going to get everything. I'll show you where you can dig in the second tutorial this week to make things look uniform like that. In MuseScore, I have yet to find a fast way to do this. So some folks might just opt for the handwritten just to keep it simple. If you want the jazz font, it's going to take a little bit of extra effort to make it really nice in the end. All right, so assuming you've made the change that I've made, hit OK, and you're not going to see a lot yet because we haven't put any notes in, but you know, bottom line, it's going to make it a little easier later. Let's get our arranger in here. Double click on where it says Billy Strayhorn, hit enter, and we can write arranged by Alan Baylock. He's the director of the UNT music program, University of Northern Texas, if you're not familiar. And we can make this italic or whatever. We can mimic all of those elements in the properties panel over here, just by hitting I for italics. And now we've got a pretty good looking version. It's not centered like this, but I'm not going to beat anybody up over that. Come on over here to our tempo marking, and then all we need to do to make this match is type in swing and then add our range. That's it. So Even though you can't do it from the initial panel, it's actually quite easy to do it once you get into the part. We're not going to worry about adding the word drums. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're technically creating a score right now, not a part. And when you're creating a score and not a part, it doesn't generate the headers. That's really a job for next week, so let's not stress about that last bit. Okay, let's take a look at what we're dealing with when we're dealing with drum set notation. Unlike most instruments, drum set notation is technically accommodating a lot of instruments. Take a peek at a drum set the next time you get a chance, or just picture one in your head, and you're going to imagine things like the giant kick drum, the snare drum that sits close to the player's lap, various cymbals, toms, which are the drums that are mounted on top of the bass drum or sitting on the floor. And then there's other things they can play too. For instance, we have the hi-hat, which can be played by the hands, which we usually notate up high, or by the feet, which we usually notate down low. There's a lot of things that can go into a drum set, and all of them can be represented on the staff, but it gets very complicated. So the PASIC, which is the Percussive Arts Society, and many other organizations have taken the time to try and standardize drum set notation. Drum set notation, being as complicated as it is, can be very confusing without that standard. MuseScore fortunately honors the standard, and we can see that if you activate the notation screen here, and then you come down here and take a peek, and you'll see that there's all these instruments across the bottom. And if we click on one, like for instance this letter B here, you'll see that 1, we hear the bass drum, and 2, the little label pops up over here. MuseScore has taken the time to label all of them, so an acoustic bass drum, kick drum, side stick, and so on. But the ones with the letters are the ones that you're most likely going to use. So if I want a snare drum, I'm probably going to use the A. If I want a kick drum, I'm probably going to use the B, and so on. To keep things very simple for us today, we're going to stick to things that are lettered only. We're only going to use those. You'll find that 90% of the time, that's all you actually need to create a good, easy-to-read drum set part. All right, so now that we understand the basics of drum set notation, let's see what it actually looks like on the page. The first 2 measures represent what we call rhythmic notation. Rhythmic notation tells the drummer, play this rhythm, but you can play it on any instrument. So this is actually fairly abstract. Then we have what we call slashes, rhythm slashes or comping slashes. It's these guys here, and you'll see them, they're in different pockets all over the place. Comping slashes are there to tell the drummer, whatever feel you're in, currently swing according to this, do that for all these bars. So it's really just marking time, that you could really just think of that as each beat, and that's just saying 4 bars of a swing feel. Drummers appreciate this because this tells them, don't worry about what you need to play here, you're just playing for 4 bars, take a listen. You'll see markings like this that'll show them, okay, groove for 4 bars, and then they see 2 more. I actually really don't like the way he did this. I like to label the last bar of every line 2. I'd have a 6 here as well, because then the drummer at a glance can go, there's the 4 bar mark. Okay, I'm playing 6 bars before visually I move to the next line. I prefer that. I find it easier to read. Alternatively, because this is a standard length section, this is 16 bars, I might label 4 and then 8 and then 12 and then 16 so that a drummer at a glance can tell exactly where all these things happen. This lets them listen instead of read a sea of nothing. Makes it a lot easier for them. So the slashes help. We have 1 bar repeats. 1 bar repeats, for those who haven't been exposed to this yet, simply means do whatever is in the previous bar again. So groove, again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and so on. Another type of notation is what we call hits over time. Hits over time is where we have groove markings, so the slashes, but then we indicate what the band is playing behind it. So the drummer's playing along and the band is going to do that. This lets the drummer make a decision. Am I going to play that along with the band, or am I just going to groove? They have choices and they can be very creative with that. One final type of notation is very traditional. It's just the way you normally enter notes, and there's nothing unusual about it. You do the same things you do for a multi-line vocal staff like we learned a couple weeks ago. Before we get too deep into this, let me show you a little bit of the standard notation. So if I needed to enter snare, we come down here and we see that snare is done on A. So I'm going to just type in 4 quarter notes. So I'm going to make sure my quarter note's selected, my notes are on, and I'm just going to hit A 4 times. This is obviously a very unexciting groove, but there you go. Let's say we need to put cymbals over it. I'm going to hit my N. Cymbals, the hi-hat symbol is G. Now, if I just type G, notice it replaces the note We don't want to replace the note. We actually want to add it to it. So instead, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hold Shift when I hit G. And that's all I need to do. Oops, I did it too many times with the same one. Something I learned working with this software is that you got to watch carefully what's highlighted when you use the Shift key. So right now the X right here is still highlighted, and that's why you can't quite tell what's going on there. So then I want to arrow forward, and then when I hit Shift G, I'm good. Arrow forward, Shift G. Now if I want to put a kick drum part in, let's say we want kick on 1 and 3, I need to put that in voice 2. Easy way to think about it is in MuseScore, voice 1 stems go up. In MuseScore, stems going down are voice 2. So if I want voice 2 on Mac, I'm going to hit Option Command 2. Notice that my cursor turns green. On PC, I believe it's Alt Control 2. Double check that, or you can just click this button. And then, just like before, I'm going to enter notes, except I'm in a new voice now, which means I have to enter rests in between. So I'm going to use B for bass drum, and then the 0 key because I want to maintain a rest. Oops, I went too far. And then B for bass drum again. And let's say I want to add a hi-hat on beats 3 and 4. I'm sorry, beats 2 and 4. So it's the same basic principle, except I want the foot hi-hat, which is done with F. And same thing, I just mouse over. All right, and then I get my full drum groove here. This is a fairly busy, overly complicated drum groove. Kind of a country thing. And if I ever wanted to just repeat one bar, I simply hit the letter R, and I can do that as many times as I want. So to play my final result, kind of a country 2-beat. All right, but of course we don't need any of this. So if you've been following along, simply delete that. We'll start fresh. We'll make sure we have everything we need right from the beginning. Yeah. Okay. The first thing we need to do for our part today, and this is going to apply directly to our tutorial, we need to create rhythm slashes. So the steps for this are pretty easy. I always enter things into snare. You can technically do it into different instruments, but it's a good habit to get into snare. The playback sound will be snare then. It'll be easier to work with. So we're just going to enter this like normal. And for notes, dotted quarter note first. We're going to use the A key to enter our notes. We have 3 eighth notes in a row, eighth rest. And then we got this little rhythm, which hopefully you're able to enter pretty quickly by now. And I've got my rhythm in there. I've got dynamics, but let's worry about that on the second video. Now I need to make this into these cool looking slashes. To do that, I go to Tools, and there's a single tab I need to click. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut assigned to it, but a single tab. Toggle Rhythm / Notation. Now I'm done, except for this one dumb formatting thing that I don't understand. Click on these guys, go over to Properties, and I can change the stem down, and it fixes that problem. I don't know why that's there. It's hopefully just a bug, and MuseScore will eventually get rid of it, but that's how you make the notation look nice and clean. But that's all there was to it. Up to Tools, Toggle Rhythm / Notation. You want to get rid of slash notation, it's a toggle, right? So just highlight it, do it again, it'll convert it back to normal notation. Now we need the word fill. So that's a text item that's under staff text. I'm going to Command A on Mac, Control A on PC will let me select that, and I'm just going to type in the word fill. It's in all capitals here, so I'm just honoring the all caps. All right, and last but not least, we need our dynamic marking. Good enough. All right, so this is set. Now we have hits over time. Let's start by doing measures 7 to 10. So there's measure 9, 8, 7. And we need 4 consecutive bars, so I'm holding Shift and clicking. That lets me select all of those measures at once. And I can come up here, Tools, Fill with Slashes. And now I've already created all 4 of those, and I'm in good shape. Last but not least, for those measures, we need to put staff text over that. Now, a little tip about staff and system text. I want you to think of staff text as items that only appear for this instrument, and system text as items that appear on the entire score. So since this is just for the drummer, we want to tell the drummer, play a solo fill, we're going to use staff text. It fills in the right area, but you might notice if you double click this, you can't edit it. Unlike staff text over here, the staff text with a line is not editable in the same way. You have to go to Properties, Text, and then you can put whatever you want in here. So this says solo fill. And then one other feature we can do under Style, it's dashed over here. That's right here. So now it looks pretty much the same, except for the text is the more traditional font. All right, but that doesn't help us with these 4 measures in the middle. It would be logical, if it were me, initially, to go, let's highlight these bars and let's add in these slashes. But I want you to get into a MuseScore-like workflow. MuseScore works best if you work in a specific order with drum set, and you want to do the slashes last. The first thing we're going to need to do is enter these hits. But the hits are going to be in the wrong spot initially. So there's a lot of steps here. You might even want to take a few notes, and I'm going to make sure that this is in the details below the video as well, because if you're going to forget something from this video, it's going to be this. Here's how this works. We're going to begin by entering notes. It's going to look just like everything we've ever done. We're going to enter that rhythm across the top all the way, all 4 of those measures. So let's get that done first. We need an eighth rest. Then we need a dotted quarter. Oops, I'm getting a mess going here. I must have hit some funky key. Let's get rid of that. Okay, let's try that again. There we go, now it's looking right. And if you have a perceptive eye, you'll notice that the first 3 notes are actually all the length of a dotted quarter, so I didn't really have to worry about the beaming or anything. If you didn't catch that, you could have entered it in the hard way. It still works just fine. Okay, I'm going to continue on entering my half notes, and it ends with a pair of 8 notes. Hopefully you're getting a lot faster at this too. I've found over the course of these tutorials that just the repetition alone has sped me up a lot, and it's becoming quite comfortable. Now you might be asking, well, this doesn't look anything like this. The notes are full size, they're not on top of the staff. How do we get them there? Well, let's go step by step. MuseScore has a pair of layers 3 and 4, that go beyond these first 2. Layer 3 defaults to this look, except the notes are full size. So we can get closer by moving these notes into layer 3. So let's start with that. And this is the order you should do this in. Enter, then layer 3. We do that. Tools, voices, exchange voice 1 to 3. See how clunky this is? It's clunky in every piece of software. MuseScore is no different. Now we need rhythm slashes. These don't look like rhythm slashes, but that's just the way they get written when they're on top. Tools, toggle rhythmic slash notation. Now we're getting really close, you see? Now it looks pretty much the same, except without the slashes. Last but not least, fill with slashes like we did before with the other 4 bars, and we end up with the right result. So it's a little convoluted to get there. Let me repeat the steps again for your benefit. Step 1, enter the rhythm we want to appear above the staff first. That's what I did first. Step 2, tools, voices, exchange 1 to 3. You want to move those voices into layer 3, which is red. When you see the red notes on the screen, you've done it correctly. Step 3, convert the layer 3 notes that you have here, tools, toggle rhythm slash notation. You want to turn it into rhythm slashes, which makes it the small notes above the staff. And step 4, the final step, highlight that region and fill with slashes, which fills layer 1 only with the slashes, which makes us look complete. All right, so at this point, here's what we've done. We've created rhythm slashes. We've created hits over time, and we've looked at the basic slash notation. But there is one other tricky thing that's much less common, but this piece actually uses several times throughout. It uses not only hits over time, but explicit notation in here with kick drum. That kick drum part is tricky. So let's take a moment and get that done. Find measure 27. Here's my 25, 26. There's would be measure 27. And we're going to go 1 bar back to measure 26 so we can enter this. We're going to follow the same basic steps. The only difference here is we need to make sure we enter our kick notation after we've finished the process of the hits over time. So it's going to go enter the hits over time, rhythm slash notation, then in layer 2, because we want the stems down full size, we're going to enter our kick drum part. Then finally, we're going to fill with slashes. Let's go through that process. So step 1, we're going to enter our notes. We just need a quarter note on beat 2 and a quarter note on beat 3. So with my quarter note selected, hit my 0 key for a rest, A twice for the snares, and that bar is now done. Click in the bar, tools, voices, exchange 1 to 3. Now it's in the correct style. Next up, we're going to add, I'm forgetting a step here. We're going to toggle to rhythm slash notation. All right, now back in this bar, I'm going to hit N again, and notice I have my blue cursor, Option Command 2 on Mac, Alt Control 2 on PC, or you can click the layer 2 button. Now I'm going to enter my kick drum part. Kick drum is with B, so I enter a rest, hit B twice, and that bar is now done. Okay, last step, technically, fill with slashes. And we're pretty close. That looks great, almost. There's one final mess. These darn rests want to appear way too high. So I'm going to select both of these rests. The way I'm going to do that is click the first one, and then while holding Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, I'm going to click the other one. This lets me edit both of them at the same time. Go over to Properties, Appearance, and then this offset here is going to let me move those rests. I know that's complicated. Let's say it one more time. I'm going to highlight my rests. I'm going to go to Properties, Appearance, and then I'm going to use Offset. I've found through a little bit of experimentation that 2.5 looks excellent. After doing that, I'm in great shape. Now, if for some reason I was really OCD and I wanted my top rests to do the same thing, incidentally, that's done in the same place, and oddly, it's a negative offset. So I can do that and make them look the same. For the purposes of this tutorial this week, I don't expect that. It would take a long time for you to sit there and fuss around with all of it. I simply want it readable, which means you're going to have to do the kick drum part because the kick drum part comes out not readable. But the hits over time comes out just fine. I don't mind these rests in the staff like that. You're welcome to modify them if you so feel. What else do we have to deal with? Well, there's a 1-bar repeat. This is easy. So bar 11, which is right here, needs to be filled with slashes. And then bar 12, which is right here, needs to have a 1-bar repeat in it. So over here, palettes, repeats, and it's the very first icon. So that's a simple one. The numbers over this, well, if I want to, let's see, I need 3 of these. So hopefully I've taught you this technique, but if for some reason I haven't, if I hit the R key, it simply repeats what I've already done. So I'm going to do that. Let's see, I need 5 total, so let's do it twice more. All right, and now I've got enough. And then over that 3rd bar, I need some staff text. Oops, wrong one. I don't want the line. I want the one without the line. And then simply edit that, parentheses for done. It's not quite in the same place, but this first tutorial is not about alignment. It's about getting the right notation in there. Let's take a peek at what else we're going to need for this. We have a sign here. We have various score text markings. We have the stacked text marking here. More rhythm slashes, more of the kick drum notation. Ooh, I see rhythms we've seen before, and actually this looks familiar. You see these are the same. There's opportunities to copy and paste then that'll save you some time. Lots and lots more 1-bar repeats and so on. More of those brackets, but we know how to do all this stuff. Repeats, we know how to do all this stuff. DS all coda, easy enough. We'll show you in the layout video. So at this point, you should see that you have every tool you need to be able to do this entire piece. If you're smart about copy and paste, what you need to do is really concentrate on minimizing work by copying and pasting things that repeat. It'll save you so much time in the end. All right, so there's the drum tutorial. It's a little longer than our usual tutorial because it involves several complex skills, so hopefully you were able to follow along. Hopefully everything makes sense. As always, please reach out to me through the inbox if you need extra support. I'll be happy to meet you in the computer lab and show you more of how this works. The second tutorial this week will focus on layout. We're going to make things match a lot better. All right, but that's it for the first one. I'll see you in the second video. Thanks. Bye-bye.